Good morning. It is Friday. It is finally Friday. I am so excited that it's Friday. Welcome to the Friday Grief Chat. I'm Jill, and
I'm
today we
Deb.
have with us Deb, and we have an amazing guest with us, Rob Gautreaux, and Rob. You are on mute. There we go. And he is here because he talks to our pets, which is such a gift. Before we start, Deb and I felt like it was really important to speak into and hold all those who are in the Middle East and those who have loved ones in the Middle East.
It is a really hard time for everyone, and it's just confusing the facts. And all I can say is have grace to yourself, because here's just a really hard and confusing time, and yet another war. So have grace to yourself. If you seem a little off, you are, and so are many. So
And turn
that's
off
what
the
I
news
say.
channels if you can, although I find that hard to do, I will admit,
Right, right.
because we have loved ones who are losing people everywhere. So please be kind to those who are experiencing this, those who have folks you may not even know are involved in this, and be good to you because all of that conflict and all those images are not good for any of our brains, even though they are reality,
Yes, yes.
right?
Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, Rob, this is so cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are? And I just find it fascinating what your day job is. Along
Well,
with this, I always like seeing, any kind of communicator, animal communicator, or people who are mediums, as you are, with pets and loved ones, that I find it all fascinating. So there you go. Introduce yourself a little bit.
thank you, Deborah and Jill. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Um, so, in my daytime job, in my career, I'm a meteorologist. So, as a scientist, I have to reconcile the paranormal, and I do that with the science of energy. And all of my books explain generally how the science of energy works with the paranormal, because the um, the life that we live right now, we have energies within us. If you think about cell splitting, if you think about blood pumping, if you think about measuring thoughts as little electrical impulses, that's energy, and that
Mhm.
energy has to go somewhere. So what I've learned, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how I came to be this way. But what I've
Mhm.
learned is that energy couples with memories, personality, and knowledge, and that becomes a soul, if you will, or that's our soul. And every living thing has a soul, and we make a choice when we die to either stay here earthbound at a fixed location that we're familiar with, or where we died, and that's what I call a ghost. Or we cross over into heaven or Valhalla, whatever you want to call the other side, into the light, and I call that a spirit. So there's a difference between a ghost and a spirit. It's just location.
I'd never thought about it that way.
Yes.
So my mediumship developed uh, really in 2005, but in when I was a kid, a long time ago, I saw my grandfather appear to me after he died, about 6, 7 months after he died, and um, he scared the daylights out of me. And when I told my mom and dad when they came home, they weren't surprised because my mother had the ability that she has hidden from everybody and never used. And my grandfather had the ability, and a cousin in my family had the ability. So it runs in my mother's side of the family. And in 2005, when a puppy of mine passed named Buzz, he was killed tragically by a car when his leash opened.
Hmm.
He reawakened my abilities, and he was the first pet that I was able to communicate with. So it went from there.
Can I may I ask a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. So when you communicate, um, how does that happen? Do you see them on the outside? Do you see them on the inside? Do you hear them? Does it get translated? Or is it a combination of all of those things?
It's a good question. It is a combination of all those things. Um, as energy, as spirits of energy, they are able to share thoughts with me
Mm-hmm.
because our thoughts are energy. It's all about energy. So
Mm-hmm.
they usually give me visuals. I can also hear them sometimes. Sometimes I can feel them. Um, they will show me things that they did in life or that they liked in life. They will also share the pain that they experienced before they passed. Um, and I can't tell you how many mysteries I've solved of pet passings for parents who didn't know what took the lives of their pets. Um,
Oh my goodness. What
yeah,
a gift.
it well, it's surprising to me, certainly. In my Pets in the Afterlife 3 book, I think there was a woman who had 4 different Westies, they're little white dogs,
Yes.
and they all died over time. And she never got an answer about what took each one of their lives. And I went through them one at a time and connected with them. And one told me that they were bitten outside by a snake. And I don't know where these people live. I don't know what their backyard looks like. I don't know what their house looks like. Some people have communicated with me from other countries, all over the world.
Right.
All I get are the pictures of the dogs' names, and questions, and that's it. So, so she confirmed that was her suspicion because that particular dog came up to her deck and collapsed after being outside.
Oh,
And she said she had snakes in the backyard. And another one had heart failure, and I can't remember what the other 2 passed from, but they were all mysterious to her. And I was able to solve the mysteries, and she was able to make sense of them, which was crazy to me.
that gave her a real sense of it happened. I'm the biggest thing for people when we have a loss, in many times it complicates our grief, is not understanding the method of the loss or not being present.
Yeah.
And while she was present, she didn't know what she was seeing. So that actually does relieve grief to a huge extent. That is a huge gift. What other kinds of questions do people ask?
Um, they often ask why a pet won't wait for them if the pet passes. And there is an answer to that. And I found that out even with my own mother. My own mother was in a coma in 2013 after having a massive stroke. And we knew that she was not going to recover. But when I got up to the hospital and joined my brothers, my dad appeared in spirit next to me and he said, "Your mother wants to pass on her own. She wants everybody out of the room." So I told my brothers, who, one of them thinks I'm kind of crazy. The other one understands.
Yes, there's always.
Yeah. So I told them and convinced them to leave. And my mother passed 5 hours later. So pets do the same thing. Pets will choose whether or not they want to pass surrounded by their loved ones or on their own. And the reason they do that is that what I keep hearing from pets on the other side is that they know that it would be too emotionally traumatic for their pet parent to watch them pass in front of them. And they're smart enough to know that they don't want their pet parent to see that as the last visual
Of them.
because you can't purge it.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
They want us to remember them as active and happy as they were when they were younger.
Can you tell me a little bit of each of your books? I was reading, I saw that you sent excerpts, but I just think it would be very cool. I've attached a few things for your excerpts from Pets 3. And now you've got four books in the Pet and Afterlife series. So could you tell a little bit about each book?
Sure. Well, the very first book, Pets in the Afterlife, which has a picture of my Weimaraner Buzz on the cover.
Oh,
This was the one that was killed by a car, unfortunately. That really goes into a lot of the science of how it's all possible. So the science of energy, as I explained, but science of behavior and learning, because pets learn on different levels. And I cite Dr. Stanley Coren and his books, The Intelligence of Dogs and How Dogs Think, to explain that. It also contains Buzz's story and a couple of others, plus stories from 3 other mediums who are friends of mine that communicated with their dogs. And an animal rescue friend of mine who told me a story that was amazing. When she was a little girl, she was saved by the earthbound ghost of a German Shepherd, because that German Shepherd disappeared after it saved her from other kids.
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's book 1.
Yeah.
Book 2, yeah, that all kinds of things. And these books all teach everybody what signs to look for. So that's why I wrote them. So they don't need to pay a medium. You know, a lot of mediums charge a lot of money because they make their living that way.
And it's hard work, by the way.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's emotionally exhausting. It's physically exhausting.
Exhausting, yeah.
Exhausting. So book 2 is about cats, dogs, birds, rabbits, horses, any domesticated animal can communicate with the living, because they learn our language, they learn our habits. You know, they live with us.
Yeah.
Right.
So then I continue to get so many amazing stories. I continue to do readings. I do readings on weekends in my spare time. And pet parents wanted me to share their stories, the readings and the confirmations. So I wrote Pets in the Afterlife 3, which is all about spirit dogs. That's this one. And that has my dog Dolly and Franklin on the cover. All of the books, by the way, have pictures of my dogs in spirit on the cover.
Nice.
I'm proud to say that this one has won an award from the Book Authority for best grief book, one of the best grief books in 2021, 2022, and 2023.
My goodness.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm really humbled by it. But what makes this one distinct is that it's all about dogs, but I also included a special chapter that I had written by a friend of mine who's a medical psychologist, and he wrote a book on how to cope with grief and loss. I mean, a chapter rather on how to cope with grief and loss, specifically for my book, and that's included. Pets in the Afterlife 4 is all about cats.
Yay.
The cat showed up.
Had to give the cat people equal time. And in this book, there's also a chapter written by another friend of mine who is a social worker who helps people cope with grief and loss. So
The social worker showed up too. I love that.
yeah. So that's basically the difference between all of them. But the stories of how pets communicate within them are just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
we're
know,
dealing with a grieving cat at my mom's house right now. She's doing better, but she's still definitely needing the robe and extra time, and it was a tough loss for her too.
Mm-hmm.
So she lost a cat companion?
No, my mom died, and this was my mom's cat.
Oh, your mom. Oh, gosh.
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
lost my mom in June and Alzheimer's, but part of her dementia was the cat became just about everything. And so she fed the cat 8 times a day, which is fun during a pandemic when you can't find wet cat food. And so the cat did everything with her and was used to being held on a lap 24/7.
Oh, my gosh.
So it's been a lot to transition her. Yeah.
Do you still have a piece of your mom's clothing?
Yeah, we kept lots of it, and she gets the robe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I find that's really comforting after someone passes that's connected to a pet.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I worked for hospice as a social worker, we used to Ziploc baggie some kind of clothing that the person who was dying had worn. So the
Oh,
pet got to
fantastic.
keep that. Yeah. Or the pillow or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. This cat has been exceptional.
Well, they grieve just like we do.
Oh,
And
yes, they
They
do.
do.
one
Mhm.
of the, because I'm a scientist, it was important for me to explain
Mhm.
that animals have the same emotions that humans do. For those of us who don't have animals, we may not think that. But for those of us who do, of course, we understand that.
We know it.
Yeah.
I know it.
So in my first book, I said there was a neuroscientist down in Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, Dr. Gregory Burns, and he's a dog dad, and he was so fed up with hearing people say that that animals don't have souls and they don't go to heaven or they don't cross over. It's just stupidity, really.
It is.
Sorry, I get a little worked up.
It's complete stupidity.
Yeah,
And
so
it's hurtful to say.
it's terrible to say. So and I have a story about that too. But um, Dr. Gregory Burns said, I'm going to disprove all of this nonsense. So he trained his dog, and he trained the dogs in his um, of pet parents that work in his laboratory to sit still for an MRI. Have either of you had an MRI?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oof.
lots.
It's a really challenging
Loud.
experience, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
A jackhammer going off in your head.
Yes.
So imagine training a dog to sit through that. So he did this with several dogs in his laboratory, and he he ran a brain scan while they were sitting there, and he had the pet parent go up to them, and then he had a complete stranger go up to them. And what he found is that the caudate section of the brain, the section of the brain that shows love, lit up whenever the pet parent would go there, but would not light up when a complete stranger came to them, proving that humans and animals have the same emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, there you go. There's the science behind it.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, we find that one of the things that people find who are pet parents find is that folks don't understand how big a loss of a pet is and just how much pets understand when there is a loss.
Mhm.
And that when the family has to adapt, the whole family, including the pets, have to adapt.
Yes.
And that their brains work like ours do. Maybe not at the same level, but they do function at the same wavelength and with the same emotional responses.
Well, honestly, I decided to only read pets a couple of years ago because people have too many hangups, and
Yes, they do.
pets don't cause wars. Humans do that. Pets are all about love,
Mhm.
and
Unconditional love.
absolutely. And it was a reading I did for a person a couple of years ago that helped me make the decision. Um, because she just sent me a picture of her dad who passed and his name and asked if he had anything to say. And he came through. He was an extremely abusive alcoholic that came through. And
Oh,
I had to write this down. I do email readings. And I was so uncomfortable because I don't know who this woman, I don't know where she lives.
you
I
don't
was
know her
horrified.
relationship with him. Yeah.
So she wrote back and confirmed everything. And Jill, I have to tell you that I felt so awful inside that I said, never again will I ever read people.
Mhm.
I totally understand that. Yep.
Yeah.
I was having a reading done one time and I didn't tell the person anything about me because you can Google me too easily
Mhm.
and everything about me will pop up.
Mm.
And the person had come with a great reputation, but I just wanted to make sure that it was, what came through was authentic. And there were lots of people and there was a lot going on and she looked very overwhelmed, which is not surprising. But she kept saying, there's somebody at my ankles who keeps butting me and wants petting. And yeah, the dog took over the entire session. So I may have to go back and just talk to Adele.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
good.
they're much easier.
Yes, they absolutely are.
Do you
Kristen
know?
Reason back. Thank you for being here.
Oh, hi, Kristen. You know, I had a one of my cats died, and the other one went around meowing and yowling, right? And I said something to a particular vet, and they said, no, pets don't grieve the same way. And I went, uh-huh. So I took out the cremains of the other cat, and I didn't have to spread any of the cremains, but I just put the plastic bag there, not the box. And do you know that other cat, the one left behind, smelled it, walked around it a few times, and then walked away? It was like closure for that cat because his buddy, his brother, had died and never yowled again. And I thought that was pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
One of the other things that I mentioned in my books that people ask is, can our living pets see our pets in spirit? And the answer is yes. And there's a scientific reason for it too.
Oh, tell.
Do tell.
So I've learned that dogs and cats have different cones and rods in their eyes that we
Mhm.
The cones and rods in their eyes enable them to see faster movement. And you can tell that if you watch a cat seeing a bird in a tree, or if you watch a dog when you're walking the dog and the dog is like honed in on something that you can't see. So they can see faster movement that we can't. As a paranormal investigator, we use high-speed cameras to capture those images of earthbound ghosts. Spirits don't come in often when I'm doing paranormal investigations, but it's usually an earthbound ghost. Also, if you think about it, dogs and cats have a different ability to hear. They can hear at different frequencies that we can. So if you think of a dog whistle, we can't hear that, but a dog and a cat can hear it. In paranormal investigations, we use digital recorders that pick up different frequencies. So we can ask a question and not hear an answer, but play it back, and then we can hear the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Wow.
So
That's
they can see. Yeah.
they can see.
Mm-hmm.
One of our regular listeners, Steve, says, I walked into our room last night to see Honor looking
That's his
up.
dog.
That's his dog, and literally talking to Harrell, that's his deceased husband. Got about 4 to 5 minutes. I gather she was telling on me.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's absolutely right, Steve. So if you notice a pet staring at what appears to be nothing, and they're fixated on it for a time, they're often watching a spirit who has come to visit. One other way to know who it is that's visiting is check the date, because it could be the anniversary of their passing, the anniversary of their birth, the anniversary of the pet's adoption. So dates are very important when it comes to figuring out who it is that they're talking to.
You know, that same cat that was mourning, this was really bizarre. I often joke that when a cat seems to jump up from behind, that a fairy kicked him in the butt, right? That's what I joke. But when this happened, and it happened a couple times in succession, I found out 2 days later, the people that used to live in our house, and they had animals too, there was a murder-suicide between them right about that time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm sure this one particular cat felt it by the way, like I said, the back end goes up. It's a real strange looking thing. People of cats would know what I'm talking about, or if you've ever had a cat. It's they're definitely being touched by something.
What
Yeah.
did you do to help your cat after that experience?
Well, I like to affirm anybody, two-legged or slithering or bird or whatever, that they are not imagining that. I mean, I would want that.
Yeah.
So I said, you were right. And then I told my husband too. And we knew, I called him Chakra. Chakra was a very psychically sensitive cat. Probably more so than any other cat I've had. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that entity still in your home, or?
No, I've had who knows everything that goes through a person's mind when they're dying. I'm talking about the humans or pets, but the entity might have flashed back here for a moment. The person who died might have
spirit.
flashed here for a moment and then left. But since that time, I have friends that are paranormal investigators, and they've come and they'd say, no, your house is amazingly clean, and we do things to clean. So yeah.
So that tells me that it was that both of the victims there have crossed over.
Yeah.
And they came back on the anniversary of the traumatic event.
One of them did.
One of them did. Yeah.
Not the anniversary. It was the day when they killed each other or killed themselves and killed.
Well, that's what I mean by anniversary.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. That's
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that confirmation.
Yeah. So
yeah.
And that brings up an important point too, is that when people are victims of murders or suicides, please know that most of them do cross over very quickly. In the case of both of them, they may linger for a little while,
right,
and then they figure out what happened, and then they cross over. I've connected with a number of people who have died by suicide, and they would say that they felt like if they crossed over, they would go to a bad place. Well, my experience tells me there's no such thing as a bad place on the other side. Everything is love and peace and acceptance, because we're all energy. So I've also spoken with a number of people who believe in certain religions that you go to a fiery place, and there isn't one on the other side. It's all love. So there's nothing to fear if your loved one died by suicide, or was a murder victim, or died in a car accident.
Any kind of traumatic death. Yeah.
Any kind of traumatic death. They're a little confused. It's been my experience. Confused, more like, what the hell happened here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes, as on earth, as in heaven or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, it takes a while to sort it out. It might take a few days. So.
Mm-hmm.
One of my very first experiences, and I know I'm getting away from pets, but it also relates to pets, was when I drove by the scene, what was the scene of an accident hours before. I didn't know an accident happened there, but I saw a man standing in the middle of the street, and he was dead, and he was confused. And I learned that 3 hours before that, there was a bad car accident where a driver of a pickup truck was killed. Mm-hmm. And when I saw him, he appeared Hispanic. And when I found out the details, he was Hispanic. And I saw him standing there that morning. When I came back at night, there were already flowers up from the family, and he had crossed over. So he understood what had happened, and then he crossed over.
And was able to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so wonderful. I know when Jill and I were researching this before, and Jill came up about 84%, right? Isn't that what you said? 84% of people who have had pets or people die that was close to them, they actually seek out some sort of medium or one that communicates with either
Some way to communicate after death.
yeah,
They need that connection. They need to have the questions answered. And pet people, especially because it's hard to actually put that out there. Like, I'd like to talk to someone about it. Kristen
Mhm.
has a question here. Do you have any advice or stories about pets with illness? My rabbit was very sick and passed about 3 weeks ago. 1 week ago, my kitten was diagnosed with deadly FIP. I feel like I haven't had room to grieve my rabbit before running in to get the kitten care.
Um, our pets know when they are sick, and some of them hide their illnesses, just like people do, because they don't want us to worry about them. Um, which is probably why your cat may have hid the illness while you were dealing with the rabbit. Um, Also, once they get on the other side, they want to just have us acknowledge that they're okay in spirit, and that acknowledge that we need to take care of the living pets that are left behind. So it's terrible timing,
It
but
is.
please know that your rabbit who passed totally understands what you're doing, and that you need to take care of your cat. I lost two dogs in 2020 um, within
Oh,
five
so did
months.
I. Mm-hmm.
It was horrible, and uh, I went through the same thing. I mean, it was over a longer period of time, but our pets know, they understand, and that brings up another aspect of sickness, because once our pets will actually give us signs that it's time to go, that they're ready to cross over.
Absolutely.
Everybody says to me all the time, I feel guilty that I had to make this decision. I feel terrible. I can't get it out of my mind. Well, it's natural to feel that because you're making the decision about a life. But we have to also understand that compassion is part of the lesson of unconditional love that our pets teach us.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes it once we learn that lesson, then we're able to help them cross over. And they appreciate it. I have pets come through to me with many illnesses. I've felt heart disease. I've felt back problems, uh, kidney failure, all kinds of issues that pets will share with me. Um, and they actually do that by giving me physical pain while I'm sitting at my computer
mhm,
typing
Uh,
yeah.
typing their message. So they understand. They understand the trauma that we're going through, and all they have for us is love and appreciation on the other side.
that's
Wow.
awesome.
I have one more question. The
Just
question
one.
is, no,
She's
I
got
have
more.
15, but I'm going to limit it to one because we're already at 12:33. People who bring pets from um, other areas, like you were living in Idaho and you moved to Illinois, and in Idaho, this part I'm making up, uh, the cat roamed free. It was an outdoor kitty. And then when they came to Illinois, it got hit by a car. Do you think the the cat that roamed free, do you think it's possible for cats that I don't like living here, so I'm going to be a little more reckless, I want to leave? Do you think that happens?
I haven't encountered that before, but I have encountered pets that have moved all across the country with their
Yeah.
pet parent. Um, there's one in my Pets 4 book that moved with his parent, and he told me which houses he liked best and which ones he didn't like
I
best.
love it.
But I don't think they make a conscious decision to end their life.
Okay.
Um, they they're also pretty resilient too. Is that even if they don't like a place that they're in, they will find a little part of that place that they can call their own and make their little home.
Because they're
home
with
out.
their parent.
Right. And being with the parent is probably, not probably, but is the most important aspect of a pet, is to be right next to the parent. So home is really where the heart is. I mean, I don't mean to pull that out, but it's true with the pet.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they make conscious decisions like, get me out of here. And that's why they get hit by the car. That's why, whatever.
The answer is no.
The answer is no. I like that.
So
Any answer is better than no answer.
Yeah. So no to making a conscious decision to end their own lives, but yes to making a conscious decision to wander off sometimes when they're near the end of their life. And I can't tell you how many I've read that have done that. And some of them there was no way they could have gotten out of the house, but they managed to do it. They were elderly and they were sick and they were near the end of their life, and they found a way. And they did that because, same reason I talked about before, they wanted to spare their pet parent the vision of them passing away.
Wow. Well,
I have a question too, Deb. I know we're past time and I don't care.
No.
So I do a lot of rescuing, and I am in touch with lots of people. We take all the ones who are at the pound and or at the vet and are going to be euthanized and because they're sick. So they come to our house and they live an extra 6 months or 2 years and we think that we're giving them a good life. But that means we have a lot of losses in our house. And a lot of those rescue types have lots of losses in their homes. At our house, when a pet has died, everybody gets to gather around. If we're going to the vet, they say goodbye before we leave. Are there other ways to make that easier, given that we have lots of ongoing losses that occur in these kinds of homes?
Well, it is really important for your other pets to acknowledge that another pet is sickly.
Yes.
So absolutely. When we had our dog Dolly euthanized in the backyard, we brought our other dogs out to sit with her. They knew that she was sick. They knew she wanted to go, but then they saw what happened, and then they went over and they sniffed her and they acknowledged what had happened, and it made it easier. So that is probably the best way to do it. And don't think that our pets don't sense that one of their kin is sick, because
ours actually gather and help take care of.
Yeah. It's because they form a pack and they always take care of their pack. So no, that's a really wonderful thing. And I have 4 dogs in spirit. I can only imagine how many you have. But I'll also tell you, since you do rescue, is that often if they come from an abusive home, and all of our kids have come from abusive homes, because they all have fears, that just know that when they pass, they are not going to be linked to the people who abused them. They're going to be linked to the people who showed them the most love in their life.
That is good to know. Just before, our most recent loss was Doug, who was he just had all the personality. D-U-G Doug. He was a 40-pound poodle. And he was very senior when we got him. And he loved when he finally learned how to play with toys, he took on all of the lamb chops. And so he had probably a dozen of them.
Oh.
And the day he died, even though he was not well at all, he gathered all his lamb chops on his favorite pillow and he sat with them. And then just before he died, he stood up and barked, laid down and died. And about every 2 weeks or so, our dogs will gather all the lamb chops by themselves and put them in a pile or take them all outside to sit with them. So we have a sense that Doug is still coming back and visiting on the regular.
That's beautiful.
So he's guiding the other pets to do that for him. So you'll know that he's still around. That is fantastic.
Yeah, he was quite the spirit, that little boy, or big boy, actually. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
thank you for being here. This has been amazing. Folks, if you are listening after the fact, we have put all of the contact for Rob in the show notes. Rob has 2 Facebook pages. Do you want to say them out loud so that they can hear them?
Oh, they can just type in Rob Gutro, Gutro, and they can find me.
They'll find you. Yes. And all the books are there. There's amazing stuff in there. I've been actually stalking the site and looking at it. We've got it on our site. And Rob, I'll be putting it on my JillJohnsonYoung.com website as well, which is a grief website.
Thank you.
I know Deb will be adding it to hers because she does lots and lots of grief work and support stuff. So thank you for being here. We will share this far and wide, folks. You've had quite a gift being here today. If you want to reach Rob, you can go to his website and arrange to send him an email. And you're taking readings for next August. Is that right?
Oh, no, it's bumped up to the end of September now. It's,
Oh, my goodness. Okay. September.
yeah.
Wow.
I only do them on the weekends, so it's hard. But I'm retiring in a year, so I'll be able to do more. In the meantime, though, Jill and Deborah, I do fundraising lectures for animal rescues.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Where I talk about what we've talked about today, so people can learn to figure out signs on their own. And I have several. I have one this Saturday, tomorrow, actually, in central New Hampshire. I just did one in Maine. I have another one in New
Wow.
Hampshire. So I'm pretty active. So my Facebook page, my website, robgutro.com or petspirits.com lists all my events. So
Oh, that's great. So people can go and see you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All of the money that I raise for the rescue goes all to the rescue. I don't take anything because I want all the dogs and cats and
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
They all deserve a good home, and it should never be that they have to look for one.
absolutely.
And there are too many shelters right now. So thank you for
Mhm.
doing that.
All
right.
Thank you both.
Thank you for being here, everybody. Have a good weekend. Those of you in the Middle East and those there, we're thinking of you.
We'll see you next week.
Yes, we will. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.